All right, welcome in another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. I'm Jeff Goodman. He is Bob Ryan, the legend. And Bob down here in Charleston, South Carolina now, different kind of backdrop, and left the snow in Boston to drive to 60 degrees. So I know you're a little bit envious of that.
A little bit, yes, I am. But I kind of was reconciled myself to, the reality of non-travel, but good for you. Yeah, it is. In fact, it did have a little dustin overnight here, but nothing serious where I am. I don't know what on the South Shore, I don't know where it is the rest of the town. Good for you. But it reminds me of the time that I was going to a BCS game in Miami, and it was 9 degrees when we left Boston. And by 2:00, we were sitting at the pool in Miami. That was a day that I remember very, very well. But good. As they say down under, good on you. Good on you. That's good.
We need a Ryan vacation home somewhere down south so you can get away from this winter weather, Bob.
No, I have not been out of New England since January 31st. I was in New Jersey at the old alma mater, Lawrenceville School, watching them play basketball. And I came back the next morning, and that's the last time I was out of New England. And that's it. And I've gone now a calendar year without getting on an airplane. And that's the longest I've gone since the summer of 1970. So, but I mean, that's just, everybody's got a story, right? All right, fine. That's my story. So, anyway, but thank God.
Speaking of departures, speaking of departures.
Yes, departures.
There's a couple, one already in Houston with Russell Westbrook, and another that might be imminent with James Harden. And our guy, Stephen Silas, who we had on about a month or so ago, was giddy because he was going to have a chance to coach James Harden and Russell Westbrook, two of the best in the business. Now, he may have neither. He may have a complete rebuild on his hands. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, Harden is not likely to spend the season in Houston. I think we're realistic about that. So the team suddenly is a completely different thing than what he thought was going to be, and not what he signed up for. But it's too bad. We root for him. We're pulling for him. We were hoping that things were going to, he's going to walk into a really good situation. Instead, he's not going to walk into a good situation, and it's already poisoned. With Harden's behavior, and too bad, Stephen. But he's a big fella. He'll get over it. But still, this is not what he had in mind. I know.
Well, my biggest issue is twofold with Harden. Is number one, supposedly you wanted John Wall there, right? You wanted this trade, and now after they make this deal and they get rid of Westbrook to get John Wall, and you're also getting rid of a first round pick, protected albeit, but still a first round pick. You've got John Wall. Supposedly he's in great shape, according to some people who have seen him play here in the last couple months. And now you don't show up. And what are you doing at this point? I just feel like Harden's always been a guy that's never had those intangibles. I've talked to enough people that have been on that team with him over the years, and they say he's got no leadership abilities for the most part. He's aloof. He's different. And now, again, isn't he just forcing Houston's hand? And sure. What choice do they really have ultimately, Bob? You go the other guys that have done this in the past, right? Whether it's Anthony Davis being the most notably coming out with his agent, Rich Paul, basically saying he's not playing for New Orleans anymore. What choice does Houston have if ultimately James Harden just says, you know what, I'm not reporting?
Yeah, it's not like if he sits out, he's missing a paycheck or two isn't going to make a big difference in his life. That's for sure. I think he's cashed a few good ones along the way. This is not a shock that he's doing this, because we did hear that he wasn't returning their phone calls. Nobody could get in touch with him. So that was not a good, not
a good sign.
No. So this doesn't, that he is doing this is not a shock, but so this is the reality, and they got to be figuring it out, because the Jersey connection has been, the story all along.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn to Brooklyn connection. And, is what, that.
How do you think that plays out? I mean, again, Kyrie, KD, Harden, obviously the talent level there is immense. I mean, those are three, maybe of the top, you can make a case. Those are three of the top 5 or certainly 10 talents in the
10,
NBA.
sure. 10 for sure. And yeah. Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's and a new coach, but an interesting new coach, that's for sure. A respected guy, a guy that everybody,
no ego.
a guy that the players, some of them are even going to look up to, as a matter of fact. And, and God, of course, now we don't know how he's going to handle day-to-day situations and all that. As a coach, we know he knows his basketball, and we know he's a very strong-willed person. But anyway, Steve Nash is an interesting choice. Oh, no, that would be they would be suddenly become the focal, the team of interest in the league. The curiosity factor. It would certainly be New Jersey would be the appointment TV kind of team. That you'd want to see how it's going to work out if they ever were to pick up Harden. There's going to be enough of that already. As we want to see how Durant's going to return and what Kyrie's going to have to offer too. So
I don't think they have to mortgage the future though for James Harden. To me, they've got really good young players to complement KD and Kyrie, right? Whether it's Karis LeVert,
or Allen.
Jared Allen's been way better than I thought he'd be. Spencer Dinwiddie. I do feel like if Kyrie could somehow get his head on straight, and that may be too much to ask, but if he could, and KD could kind of figure out a way to massage whatever issues he's had in the past, because they're super close. This team has what it takes to win the East, don't they? I mean, listen, you're putting pure rosters.
Are we going to assume 100% return on Durant or not? No. I mean, Achilles, he's 30. He's older than you think, than you realize. He's been around longer than you know.
He's got a lot of miles on him. Is what he is. I don't think he's as old. I think he's only 32.
Yeah, but I mean, that's older than you think. I mean, somehow he projects young. You think about him that he's a kid. He's not a kid anymore.
He's 32, turns 33 in next September. So he's 32 years old. But again, now he's had multiple injuries over the last few years. So you start to wonder whether he's going to come back. And Kyrie also hasn't been the model of health over the last couple of years.
Oh, no, he's missed a lot of games. And there's no question. So, yeah, it's a big fantasy there. It could work out. Yes, it could. But it could blow up in their face too. And but it's worth the shot for them, though. They need to make a sweat. I'll tell you one thing. They've got an owner who is at the bottomless checkbook. I mean, the endless checkbook and a desire to win. Joe Stein. I can tell you that guy is serious. He's going to be somebody to reckon with in the league in terms of ownership. And he's serious. So they're going to be intriguing. I mean, one way or the other this year.
All right. So here's the big Celtics related question for you. They've got a $28.5 million trade exception right now.
Yeah. Danny
Ainge was able to finagle, I guess is the best word, after losing Gordon Hayward. Do you utilize that to try to bring in James Harden if you'd obviously have to give up picks? You'd have to give up somebody else. I don't know who that would be.
I would prefer, look, this is just me as a fan, the aesthetics of it all, the whole thing. I've never been a big fan of his. I respect the talent. Obviously I don't want him. I like the group. Yeah, I'm speaking strictly as a fan here. I like the group we've got. I want to try to win with this group. I want to augment this group. I don't know what they need. Maybe they help themselves in the draft enough. I don't know. We don't know whether there's going to be any instant plasma supplied by Neesmith or even Pritchard. I don't know. And but I like what we got, and I definitely like picking up Tristan Thompson. And he's hurt at the moment. It's just hammy. It doesn't appear that it's not supposed to be serious, but he's not practicing at the moment. Anyway, I hope not. I hope Danny doesn't go in that direction. I don't know what their plans are. You can whack that thing up though, right? That 28. I mean, it's not you have to do it in one shot, right? You can.
I don't know. I think it might be in one shot that you've got one trade exception. I'm not sure of the specifics, but I think again, listen, you've got the money that you can go after a big time guy. Do you wait and see kind of what you need? And if Kemba, and we'll get onto this here in a second, but if Kemba isn't healthy, they're not, in my opinion, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere without
anywhere. They make the playoffs. Don't you think?
I don't know.
Really?
Jeff Teague.
With that forward pair, with Smart, wow. I mean, and now they got Thompson. You know, we don't know what the kids are going to do. I mean, I like to think that they're going to get some use out of Nesmith right away.
Probably make the playoffs. But, man, you got Jeff Teague as your starting point guard playing 35 minutes a game at that point. I don't know if you're a lock. I think, again, listen, I worry. To me, if the Celtics don't have a healthy Kemba Walker by February 1st, they're in major trouble. Like, they can kiss this season goodbye going deep in the playoffs. They got no chance. You lose Hayward, and then you're going to lose Kemba. I get you. Get Tristan Thompson's great as a auxiliary piece, but I don't think he gives you much different than what Daniel Tice does. He gives you toughness. He gives you rebounding. He gives you an athletic, hard-working forward. But it's not like either one of those guys. Neither one of them are scorers.
No. Well, they don't need a scorer there, though. If they don't have Kemba. They don't have Kemba, yeah.
Right.
I know. All right. Well,
that's my big issue is if you don't have Kemba needs to be he's got to be your number 2 guy. Tatum's clearly your number 1 now. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But Kemba's got to be your number 2. And if they don't have him, you go from Kemba to Jeff Teague. And again, we didn't see a healthy Kemba last year. We remember Kemba as, man, he just wasn't very good in the postseason. We forget Charlotte Kemba. And if you have Charlotte Kemba, to me, then this team has a chance to come out of the East. Without Charlotte Kemba.
All right, so I agree with that, but I still don't think they're a disaster. I think they're still a good team.
Good team.
But not.
Are you better? I mean, you put it on the list.
If it were, I'm just trying to, rather than prorating how many W's with a truncated season, if it were an 82-game season, a non-Kemba could be a 45-6 win team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But look at it now. Without Kemba for half the year, let's say he doesn't come back till February 1st. So he's going to miss 2 months of a 72-game schedule. So what's that, a third of the year?
No, not 2 months. 6 weeks because they're starting on the 23rd of December.
Okay, so you're right. So he'll miss.
So I don't know how many games. Yeah, that would be, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to start trying to do math in my head. That's what I'm going to.
So he'll miss 5 weeks, 6 weeks probably. Before he gets 100%, it may be 2 months.
Of course, they're going to compact the schedule, so it could be at least 15 games, I'm sure.
And this is why the Jeff Teague signing was so important.
I was a terrific signing. If they can put him doing what he should, we know who he is. We know what he is, and he's a high quality it's a high quality auxiliary piece. He's a very useful auxiliary piece. And you're right. If he's going to if you're going to elevate him into a starter and a guy that you're depending on, then that's a different matter. But using him the way they projected, that was an excellent pickup. So
let's go through, Bob, without a healthy Kemba. Tell me if they're better than any of these teams. Okay, without a healthy Kemba, like a 90% Kemba. Ready?
All right.
Start Milwaukee.
No.
Toronto.
No.
The Nets.
We don't know. Probably.
Okay, fine. Miami.
No, clearly. Not. No.
We got 4 there.
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Well, Philly's a mystery guess now. We think they solved that. They've done what they needed to do. We think. All right, let's see. But I thought it would. Yes. I mean, yeah.
Better than Indiana.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I think Indiana is better without Kemba.
Okay.
So you got 4 clear.
And one more to throw in the mix, an improved team, but is Atlanta. They're going to they're improved on paper.
The good thing is even without Kemba, they're probably a lock for the playoffs. But you're talking about 7th, probably.
Yeah, I understand. I agree. Well, that's and I'm all right. That's true. So I think we can agree on that. It's important. There's no, I'm not going to argue. It's important.
Now, again, can Teague be good enough for those, 20 games or so that you can go 12-8 and not really hurt yourself and be 7-13 and have to dig yourself out?
Yeah. It's conceivable. It's conceivable. I mean, he's a solid pro. That's all I can say. He's a solid pro.
Tatum's got to turn himself into a clear top 10 player. Like he was a fringe top 10 player last year in the NBA.
Yeah, in January, it definitely was.
Right.
When we hit that wall, he was playing great basketball.
And he came out of it playing really
I have
well.
to tell you, because you're president of a fan club, or
Yeah.
at least you're a ranking officer. I know that. Like I'm a ranking officer at a Marcus Smart fan club, and you're a ranking officer.
Well, that's another one. Listen, that's another one. Marcus Smart now has to be more consistent with his offense. He's going to have an expanded role with Kemba out, I think. And you're going to see him playing more of the point, which I give a lot of credit. I don't know how much we've talked about this, but I feel like Marcus Smart has come a long way in his ability to run a team. Forget about the shooting. The shooting is still it's clearly way better than it was from the perimeter. He still has his great nights and his awful nights, but his decision making is the part of his game that I respect more than anything else from when I first saw him in AU basketball, when he was just kind of a, just go and overpower people and try to get to the basket and physically. And he can't do that to the same degree now, but he can set up his teammates. He can pick his spots. He's good in pick and roll. So I think Marcus Smart is a guy that can take pressure off of Jeff Teague. If you play them together, I actually think they have a chance to be solid, better than solid in the backcourt.
Well, I think you're going to see that pairing at times, even with
crunch time.
Yeah, sure, you will. No, I agree with you. He's I certainly didn't project the young Smart that rookie Smart. You never would have projected into having any kind of a role as a point guard and at all. And he's evolved. He's continually gotten better in every way. And so there's increased pressure on him. It's amazing. Still think he's the ranking guy in seniority now. What is he? 26, 25?
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, insane to me. Hey, getting back to Kyrie, do you see the news? Big news that I don't think he's talking to the media this year.
I saw that. Yeah, I know. Well,
how upset are you?
Oh, I'm just crushed. I mean, he always makes so much sense. We're going to miss those insights. Those keeping all those deep thoughts to himself. He is. You talk about taking yourself a little too seriously. Oh my God. As I said once, I'm sorry. I'll repeat. He's not as smart as he thinks he is, and he's searching for something, and he doesn't know what it is. And that's. Meanwhile, is he extraordinarily talented? Yes. He is extraordinarily talented. Yes. But he's a handful. Good luck.
I just don't know what he's doing. Like, to me, it's like maybe somebody told him close to him, hey, you know what, Kyrie, listen, every time you talk, you dig yourself into a deeper hole. So why don't we just do this year? Don't talk at all to the media. Listen, it might be the smartest move Kyrie has ever made in a way ball. Because now, again, it'll be after games, no matter what. I think he likes the attention too much. So I think either that'll change quickly if they're winning, or he'll just use his social media platforms to get out his message. And then fans can, like you say, see how little sense he makes when he talks. Because I've gone through it many a time. I mean, even dating back when his days at Duke, he'd talk for 10, 15 minutes. I'd record it. I'd listen to it and be like, I don't get any of it. I don't understand it. Like, he's using words that don't make sense in certain places. I always felt like he was just trying to look intelligent.
This is part of the not as smart as he thinks he is, and he's trying to overdo it. But I don't want this to leak into any criticism of his game or his play. He's a terrific player. He gets to the basket at his size as well as anyone I've ever seen, and except for Isaiah Thomas, that's the phenomenon of all. And by the way, I wish him well. I hope he gets healthy, and he's telling people and people are saying he looks good. So he doesn't have a job right now, right?
He does not. Would you want the Celtics to bring in Isaiah Thomas right now, Bob?
If they were told that if Kemba were out, permanently out, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at him with him myself.
I mean, it's amazing to me what he did in Boston. Like, this is a guy that, 60th pick. Like he was trying to just kind of stay in the league. He comes to Boston. It was like the ultimate perfect storm, right? They didn't have anybody else that could do anything off the bounce. So Brad just says, you know what? This is our best opportunity. But nobody saw that coming. I mean, he was so good offensively over about a 2-year span. Now, again, I always felt like whatever he was giving you offensively, he was giving the same amount up generally defensively, not necessarily by his man, but I always felt like the problem was he couldn't stay in front of anybody. So even if it was Al Horford having to make up for his mistakes and putting himself out of position, if he was getting 30, he was giving up 30. But, man, he was exciting to watch in the offensive end.
And people fell in love with him, and he loved them back. It was a real mutual, kissy face thing going on here in Boston with he and the fans, and quite mutual. And it was nice. It was sweet. And then, and unfortunately, he got hurt. And he tried valiantly to play with the bad hip, and he hurt himself, and the team kind of bears, they do bear some responsibility there. And, he went from, he had the old back up the Brinks truck line, right? Remember?
I remember.
We were talking, does he get a max? And he goes to 0, you have to feel badly for him.
I think part of the problem with Isaiah now is whoever signs him, the only way he's effective is to put the ball in his hands. And if you put the ball in his hands, everybody else is standing around.
All right. Before we leave the subject of the Celtics and also shorter guards, we had a story in the paper today about Carson Edwards, who became a forgotten man, and who teased us. And I remember thinking at the night he did it, don't get too excited. And I'm telling other people, don't get too excited. But I'm talking about the night in Charlotte last year in the exhibition season when he made 8 threes. Not only did he make 8 threes, he did it in a 5-minute span, which I wish I had seen this. Yeah. I only read about it, but but he never got going, and he shot poorly. He shot, I think, 30%, and fell out of the rotation, became a forgotten man. Do you harbor any hope that Carson Edwards will resurrect himself and have an NBA career of any consequence?
Not really. No, I think Aaron Nesmith is far more what the doctor ordered for the Celtics. Size, can really shoot it, can guard. Again, I go back to for Carson, he was great in the NCAA tournament. For his senior year in Big Ten play, he was not efficient at all. He was not effective at all. He's a guy, again, like Isaiah, but at the college level, needs reps, needs the ball in his hands all the time. Not a good second unit guy who, can get in once in a while.
Well, then he's
a high volume player.
Well, if that's the case, then, obviously this is not what's going to happen here.
Ultimately, the strength of the Celtics, if Kemba gets healthy, is the bench is going to be better now, right? You have Jeff Teague coming off the bench now, who can score the ball, absolutely score the basket.
How much of an upgrade is he over Brad Wanamaker?
Well, an upgrade in a sense that he's done it for years.
Yeah.
And Wanamaker was really good though in spurts. I'm really happy for him. He went to Golden State.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah.
I mean,
everybody rooted for him.
Ultimate professional, had fought his ass off just to get into the NBA. Your typical pit player, right? Just tough, hard-nosed, lunch pail guy, the ultimate lunch pail guy. So I'm really happy. It didn't say 2 words. Also, just went out there and played ball. And great locker room guy, quiet. So I'm happy for him. But, yeah, it's an upgrade because every time Jeff Teague steps on the court, guys know he's capable of going for 15 or 20. With Wanamaker, he would have his spurts, a game here and there. But you could play Teague long minutes. With Wanamaker, it was always, Brad, you're only going to play him long minutes if you've got no choice, if Kemba's hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's what's happening here in Boston, and we patiently wait, Kemba, and see what happens here. But
so you hear the news that your boy Doc is going to return Ben Simmons to his rightful spot as.
Oh, really? No power forward.
No forward. He's a point guard again. The experiment didn't last long. He is a 4-man. But listen, he's a point guard. Wherever you put him, Bob. The key for Doc, as we've talked about, is what? with Ben Simmons.
The shot, the three. Yeah. Is he going to ever, join the 21st century or not? So, it's up to him.
Hey, you'd like him not to.
I love yeah. I would, that. But if everybody else would go along, we could, me, I'd legislate the 3 out of existence in the next 5 minutes. We'd go back and play.
How good would Ben be? How good would Ben have been in the 80s?
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, there's a magic element there. It's really what we're talking about, to a degree, it's a reincarnation to a degree at 6'9", ball handling, dexterity, vision, Yeah, I mean, that's what Magic was. Magic had to adapt as the three came in and make himself into a better shooter. And he did. He was never devastating, but he was a threat.
Ugly.
He was a threat.
An ugly looking right set shot, wasn't it?
It was a set. It was mostly a little tippy toe thing set, but he had it, and it was part of, and he incorporated it into where it was there, and it was part of the deal, and he was a threat, and he was better at, so of course the great players as a rule add on and work on their weaknesses. And I'll never forget the year, I'm telling you, I can still hear Larry Bird when they got swept by the Bucks in 1983. And he missed the game when he was sick, and there was things going on there that they were all bailing on Bill Fitch, everybody but him, quite frankly. And it didn't go well. The Bucks were very fortunate to catch the Celtics when, as they caught them, and they took advantage of it. Good for them. Okay, Larry's sitting there, and there's only 2 people left in the media. That's when I was in television, and I wasn't rushing right back to write my story. And it was Glenn Ordway, who was then this color man with Johnny, most of the Celtics, and me. And Larry is saying that I am going to go home, and I'm taking this very hard and very serious. And I'm going to go home, and I'm going to work on my game, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to be better.
Good.
And that's the year he went home, and he came back with that throw shot, that half jump hook on the baseline, and worked on his left, which culminated, of course, in the famous game in Portland 3 years later when he had 11 left-handed baskets and 10 right-handed baskets. There's a mythology out there that he played the whole game left-handed. He did not, but he played it largely left-handed. Excuse me.
Larry, by the way, is 64 years old yesterday, correct?
True. And I was taking, a lot of people took note on Twitter, and a lot of videos were posted so the youngins could get a look at what they missed, and the rest of us could get our, bathed in nostalgia about what we're not seeing. But yeah, Larry was 64 yesterday, and so I wished him a happy, and he's home in Indiana, and when life goes on, he's 64. Hard to believe.
We got to get Larry on here. That's your.
All right, we'll work on Larry.
The big goal, for you. I know it's not easy. Larry doesn't do a whole lot.
No, he's receded from public view.
It's amazing. I mean, to me, it is, but it isn't, right? Because Larry never really loved that part. In one way, he liked the attention, but he really didn't. Like he was engaging when you got to him.
Oh,
he wanted.
We got better and better at it. I remember I once read by 1988, I wrote a story for the Boston Globe Sunday magazine about the blossoming of Larry Bird, and how Larry Bird, who started out, wary of the media and very wary, and of course, media phobic when he came out of Indiana State, and he and by this point he became a raconteur. He liked, and he knew exactly how to handle the media, and he knew what they wanted and what. And it was amazing, and it was. So yeah, he got real good. He got real good during the off days, during the playoffs. In those days, he was terrific. But he grew up in public. These guys all do. But but he grew up in public.
To Boston.
It was a totally different culture that he came from, and he found out. Yeah, I like Boston. He was surprised.
They liked him.
He liked the city. He liked. Yeah, the only thing he didn't like was traffic. That was it. Other than that, he liked Boston. He said,
but he was so beloved. It was so hard for him not to like Boston because everywhere. I mean, the hardest part for him was probably going out in public and not being able to be Larry Bird in French Lick. Who could walk around.
And home, he was just still treated. It's just Larry. He's just George's kid. He was Larry, but not Larry Bird. He's just Larry. And that's why he always went home in the summer. In those days,
to get away,
he went back to Indiana, back to and But anyway, yeah, Larry Bird.
Who is the go-to guy then? I'm, as a media guy, I'd love to know the answer to this. Like when you went in the locker room and in a tough loss, who was it? Kevin? I mean, you had a few that were pretty good, but who was your go-to guy that you had to go to that you knew was going to be a quote machine?
Kevin. Kevin was the quote machine, and I always marveled at his apt metaphors and analogies when they were always on target. Unlike we were talking about Kyrie, unlike Kyrie who misused, overrated. Kevin was the anti-Kyrie in that sense that he always made sense. And he was trying to be funny. It was funny, and it was a good, he was absolutely a guy. And the previous incarnation, back in the 70s, my first go around with the team, Paul Silas. He's one of the most interesting people that I ever met in all the years of coverage was Paul Silas. He was the conscience of that team. I used to say he was. Havlicek was John. He was royalty, in a sense, and he did not that he was just dignified. John was totally dignified always. Silas was the conscience of that team. In fact, I never encountered anybody subsequent after that that was quite matched him in that regard, in my experience.
The most intimidating person you have ever interviewed, Bob Ryan, in your entire life, your entire career, who, when you went up to, were you just kind of either awestruck or just, man, like that guy scares the hell out of me?
Well, I think the most intimidating presence was Albert Bell. And Albert Bell, no kidding. He dominated that Indians locker room, those great Indian teams, none of which ever won the World Series, regrettably, but they were so close, back then. Those teams, and he dominated the locker room. He poisoned the atmosphere. I've never seen anything like that. I bet if you lined up 50 baseball writers over the time, that it would be about 48 of them would say Albert Bell, because you actually got the feeling he might want to hurt you.
Well,
you actually got that feeling he might want to hurt you.
Remember, I went to school at Arizona. The Indians trained at High Corbett Field. I got a credential, and I used to ride my bike all the way to High Corbett Field, a few miles every day to go to spring training. Because I had a credential. Why wouldn't I go every day?
Yeah.
It was the early days of Albert Bell, Alomar, Kenny Lofton, Jim Toomey. I mean, that team was loaded.
What a lineup. What a lineup. You guys, that lineup, Manny batted 7th coming up in that lineup. And it was because he was ridiculously good at, but I mean, that's how good the lineup was. You mentioned Kenny Lofton. Kenny Lofton was like Albert Bell's second in command. He was like the little yippy dog, he was the lieutenant.
My most intimidating, I think my most intimidating would be a tie, and they're physically intimidating. That's why I chose these two. Would either be Frank Thomas or Karl Malone.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I met both when I was young. Yeah. And I remember Karl Malone just kind of standing right over me. I was probably 16 at the Marriott Longworth in Boston. And I think I asked him for an interview or something. And he was nice. It wasn't like he wasn't nice, but I was, 5'7", a 16-year-old. And I was just totally just like, oh my God, this guy's a monster. And then the other one, I was covering spring training in Florida, and Frank Thomas had gone over that day, and I'm waiting by his locker to try to interview him after. And I'm like 17 years old. I'm down there in spring training, got a credential. I'm like one of the only one. I think I'm like the only one there at that point. He comes in, and I'm ready as he's walking into the locker room towards his locker. I'm ready to say, excuse me, Mr. Thomas, like try to be. He comes over and he punches his locker as hard as he humanly could. And I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this.
Oh, wow.
In a spring training game.
You put the big hurt, put a hurting on the locker, huh?
Put a hurt. I'm like,
hurt locker.
I'm out. No chance. And again, both good people. But just like 6. Yeah.
back to basketball though, and this is interesting because you say intimidating, and I've used it. My first game I ever covered for the Celtics, for the Globe, was opening night in 1969. The Celtics are playing the Cincinnati Royals, and I had been given the job 2 days earlier with no training camp, no preparation. Hadn't met a soul. Hadn't met the new coach Heinsohn. Didn't know nobody. Had never covered an NBA game. 23 years old. And the game's over, and I'm in the locker room, and I'm in the Royals locker room. And as I'm talking to this particular individual, a thought like washed over me. Oh my God, I'm talking to Oscar Robertson. And it wasn't that he was nasty or anything, but I was just, it's just my back. Literally, I was overwhelmed, I'm talking to Oscar Robertson. What am I doing here? Seriously, that kind of thing. What I didn't know at the time, which I don't know, and I wouldn't have no way of knowing, was that already Oscar and Cousy were not getting along.
Really?
And Cousy, ultimately traded Oscar that year to the Bucks and traded Jerry Lucas to the Warriors. Okay. And he got rid of the two, pillars of the team. But I didn't know this, at all. And I knew, because Cousy, I knew. That was the great thing, because I had known him from BC since the time I was 18 years old. As a freshman at BC, he was the coach, and I knew Cousy. That was my one. But I didn't know all this friction was already sizzling in that locker room on the opening night. They won that game by 2 points, beat the Celtics 110-108. That was Hank Finkel's debut, by the way. And that's when there was an audible gasp. I'm not making this one up. There was an audible gasp in that building when he went to the free throw line for the first time, and he did this. The Catholic.
Oh, right. That's right.
Jesus, Mary, Joseph thing that you do. Everybody thought he was Jewish. Finkel. Turned out there was a gasp. He's Catholic.
That's classic.
It was great.
Oh my God.
That was my first game. My first coverage.
We got to do this next week. I'm gonna, at the end of each episode now, we need to come up with a couple good stories that we can tell. I think that's something we've been missing. I'm going to give you next week. Remind me. I'm going to give you, and I'll tease this right now. I was in Buffalo for about 6 months. I pissed off 2 athletes. You're going to find out who they are next week. Okay. One is a football player. One is a hockey player. And both stories are pretty good. I left Buffalo 6 months, and I pissed off 2 guys that you would not want to piss off. So
okay.
I'll give you that one next week. And we'll see you next week from lovely Charleston. And hopefully your weather will be a little bit better, Robert, so you can get back out there.
Yeah, okay. All right. Go get them.